Information on the arrest of a man in South Fargo last night. You may not believe this. The newly released court documents today say 36-year-old Bryant Matthews played video and audio of the shooting death of Fargo police officer Jake Walleen during that barricaded situation last night.
Yeah, Valley News Team's Bobby Fallett is here live in studio with more on this case. Bobby.
Stacy, Justin, that's right. These documents right here say that Matthews was found inside of an apartment in the 1800 block of 2nd Avenue South in Fargo around 4 yesterday afternoon. A woman told police that when she came home from a work trip, she found Matthews in her apartment. The two are known to each other. Now, here is video of his arrest. Matthews told police he believed that the apartment to be his, adding that he is from the South and that officers are not going to tell him how to operate his house. Last night's SWAT situation caused the apartment building to be evacuated and for area roads to be blocked off. Police say they could hear Matthews was sparking a taser inside of the apartment and was playing officer-involved shooting videos on the other side of the door. Matthews eventually came out of the apartment peacefully and now has been charged with criminal trespass, terrorizing, and preventing arrest. Police asked Matthews why he played video of the shooting death of Fargo officer Jake Walleen. Matthews responded with, quote, "to get your attention." Justin, Stacy.